Today I'll show you how to make paper fabric, and you will notice two pieces of muslin here. I had originally used them, or was going to use them, for some quilting samples, so there's writing on one side. That's no big deal because we're not going to see the top. What I have here is, it's plain white glue. This just happens to be Elmer's glue all, because that's what I had in the house. And some water. I mix them. 1 part glue and 1 part water. So I use a sponge brush for this. Let me change hands here. Not very good left-handed. And you just want to make sure that there's no streaky lines of glue. Okay, and once you see that it's mixed fairly well, you just start painting onto the fabric. This is pretty well soaked with glue. So now I'm going to find some papers. Once you have it all glued on, and what I did was tore up a bunch of different papers. There's music paper, music sheets, there's tissue paper, old ledgers, old book pages. This is a letter somebody wrote. And then just tore it up, and you glue both sides of the papers that you're putting on, and then lay them on and make sure that you've patted them down, used the sponge to, or the paintbrush to flatten out any areas that had bubbles or mist or whatever. And I forgot to tell you that you should work on a piece of plastic, because otherwise you'll stick. Then you let this dry. This had already dried overnight, and so I put on a light coat, a wash of apple green and a little yellow. I'll wait for this to dry and then see how it looks dried, and then may add another coat of white or cream. So it's not finished yet, but you can still see through the layers, and it is a little stiff, which is what the glue does to it, but it's still on the fabric, and you'll be able to sew on it once it's dry. For this layer, I did a whitewash, and I used a rag, wiped that all up. Then I stamped the circle stamp on there. It's an old Stampin' Up! Background. I'm going to let this dry a little, and then I'm going to make a postcard out of a piece of it. So I'll stitch on it with the sewing machine and then show you what it looks like. Here is a finished postcard. Just have to do the back. But there's some stitching on it, and then the edge. If you would have put paper onto the front of the postcard, when you did the edge, the paper would lift off. In this case, you can see that there is a little lift, but because it's glued to the muslin, it won't come apart. You can see through the layers, So you can do book text, music sheets like this one. There's some book text. And depending on how you mix the glue with the water, the more glue, of course, it's going to be really stiff. I start with 1 part glue and 1 part water, and if I'm not liking the layer, like this, I know now that this muslin could take probably 1.5 water to 1 part glue. Just, you can go 2 for 1, play around with it, depending on the layers. Paint, stamp, draw on it, and then the neat part is you can sew through it without it falling apart. That's what I like. So hope you enjoyed this week's tutorial, and we'll see you next week.